Hi, this is Jon Dasilva, DJ producer, resident at the Hacienda and Isle of Acid, and you're listening to the Liverpool Connection Podcast, music and football episodes.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Liverpool Connection Podcast. I'm your host Daz. This is my music and football episodes where I usually bring on a guest to talk about the two loves of life, which for me are music and football. Today, it's all about music. There might be a little story about football here and there, because this fella was original resident at the Hacienda in Manchester. So many a footballer went there and probably had a late night. Back in those days, I think you can have a ciggy and a drink after a match, or even during a match, back in the 80s and 90s. But I've got DJ and producer Jon Dasilva in the house today. We're going to talk about his musical journey, and we're going to talk about his brand new single that will be coming out, I believe, next week. So when this goes out, this episode goes out, it'll already be out. But it's called Sun Brings Joy, and it is a belter. It is one hell of a chugger, and it fits in every type of music. I mean, house, tech house, techno. You can even put it in a break set. So we'll get into that. But welcome to the pod, mate.
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome back. I have to qualify this. It's actually out already. So the vinyl's out, but it's sold out. And the Digi is officially out tomorrow, which, while the time this comes out, will be well and truly out on every streaming and portal you can imagine. So fill your boots.
yeah, definitely get on it. Where whatever platform you get it on. I always say Bandcamp because the artist is the one that makes more money on Bandcamp than probably anywhere else. And I mean, we can get into that whole Spotify thing, but that's a whole nother podcast.
It's not on Spotify. No, for very obvious reasons. It's actually available on Bandcamp as we speak, which is again this delayed by a week, but it's been on Bandcamp for a week. And I'm going to put some vinyl up there, which I held back, and I'm going to sign a load of copies and put those up on Bandcamp in the next few days. So they'll also be available next week when this podcast goes out. So yeah, so there will be some vinyl, and then they're repressing it, so it should be fully back in the shops within a couple. Well, we don't know, So the repressing. It's sold out that quickly.
It's so refreshing to know, you're putting out vinyl, because, we live in this digital world now where it's so easy to make music and put it out, either on Bandcamp, Beatport, Juno, whatever, and nobody really thinks about the vinyl. And I'm a massive vinyl enthusiast. And I've said it on this podcast so many times. I'm a weirdo because I like the smell of brand new vinyl.
Unfortunately, it's not been shrink wrapped, because I used to love opening the shrink wrap. Obviously, on the imports, it was like the whole smell of the whole experience. Because I know exactly what you mean. It's having the artifact, really. It's having a proper artifact that you can hold in your hands. It makes such a difference. And I know it's been a bit of a deal breaker for me and Jonas Skyskrapa. And in the past, we wanted vinyl deals. We wanted pressing and distribution deals for everything, because, I don't actually play vinyl myself as a DJ these days. I did go through a phase a few years ago working with a guy in Sweden, and we were doing a few festivals, and we were using a hybrid setup of CDs and Technics, what have you. But it was such an absolute ball ache. I remember one festival in Paris that was like, with all the money they've got and everything, they couldn't set up the decks properly. So it was just, I think got the wind factor. It's an open air thing. You've got a wind factor coming in and all that kind of thing. You go, nah, maybe not, So, I love having the artifacts, and I know, and a lot of people play vinyl, so I always want that vinyl there. And for an artist also, you do make a bit of money if it's, certainly through Bandcamp, with the vinyl, there's a direct markup there, which is great for the artist, which supports the artist, which is all important these days. There's so little money in the business that any money is always welcome.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think especially with Bandcamp, there's such a connection with the fans. It's so easy to for them to contact you, and I like that. It's like making your own little community.
Well, I will be. I'm starting a label kind of started it, but then it's just the rest of the music and stuff has taken over in the last year. But we're starting a label which is called Black Dragon Sound, which will essentially be a Bandcamp label. We might do some stuff through pressing distribution through whoever, but essentially it's to build Bandcamp. It's to build a Bandcamp community around the label. We're not just putting out mine and the owners and stuff, but I've got hopefully, I've got a couple of things lined up by other people. A guy called Rowan in Scotland, and hopefully we'll get more people sending stuff in. But it is all about building a community around what you think is great music ultimately, and that's what the label wants to be. So I think the first release, I'm waiting for the remixes. So I've got a track called Crashed Acid Adventure, and I've got Love Fingers doing a remix, and I've got Justin Robertson doing a remix. So I'm just waiting on those guys to get the remixes into me, and then we can plan the release and the vinyl and all the rest of it. So it's all dependent on getting the vinyl ready in time. So I'd hope it's going to be done by June. Where it's in the lap of the gods, or in the lap of certain DJs and producers that are hopefully beavering away as I speak, finishing a remix for us.
Well, I want to take you back now, Jon. I always like to know my guests, like, what was playing in your house as a kid, and did it influence any of your musical tastes?
I had two older brothers. I still have got two older brothers. Hi, Steve. Hi, Mike. Yes, and we all got into. We all got into Bowie big time, and much to their they begrudgingly took me to Bowie at the Preston Guildhall in, I think it was 1973, possibly summer 74. We kind of disagree on all of this, which year it was and which tour it was. But he certainly was playing. It was certainly the Ziggy Stardust crew. It was the Spiders from Mars band, and all the rest of it. So Bowie was huge in my life. I was 10 at the time, so huge in my life, and was for many years. And my brothers got into a lot of West Coast rock as well, West Coast folk and rock. So I got into Joni Mitchell, that kind of thing. So, and that's still Joni's part of my life, But the more left field stuff, that's where I started to really follow the Bowie roots out to the Velvet Underground and to Iggy Pop and all the things that Bowie mentioned, sort of thing. And that stuff's obviously how you tend to filter your input, as it were, is through the people you're into. And so later on it was the Fall, and through the Fall I got into Can and the German sort of Kosher-based music kind of scene, so that bands are very, obviously that whole thing, that whole finish system started with me quite early with Bowie, and took me off in directions that my brothers didn't really agree with, to the point that I remember they took me back to Brady's record shop in Preston, in the marketplace there, and made me take back and get my money back for Iggy Pop Raw Power. So they went, literally, no, you're not having that. But nevertheless, I don't regret any of the things the knowledge I've got from all that kind of music that we listen to at home. I don't, it all goes into the mix, as it were. But I was the right age, as it were, to pick up on punk. So maybe 13, 14. I was 13 in 77, 13, 14, 77. So I went to start going to gigs at Preston Polytechnic. And there was no age check on the door. And I looked pretty old anyway. I looked old for my age. So I got in to see everything, Saw Susie the Banshee supported by The Cure, supported by the Associates. That was one lineup. You know what I mean? It was just incredible nights in there. Ultravox. So I was thinking about what else I saw, but just that was really formative years, and I was in bands at the time as well. So that I kind of met people on the scene via that, and so it was really really important for me to discover all this new music. So, and that's kind of. It was only a few years later that it's acid house. It's like 79, 80, and then 8 years later it's 88. It's like it felt like forever at the time, but looking back, it was a blip, from punk to acid house, and I think so many of those attitudes I took with me from punk, the DIY and the almost anti-musicianship kind of thing was very much part of what happened with the electronic music revolution, as it were, of coming out of acid house. So I don't know if I've jumped through too many years there, but
no. It's all good. Well, like for me, the Jam were a big part of my life.
Yeah.
Just because you're at that age when you're a teenager, you want to get as far away from kind of your parents' music.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a rocker, my mum was like soul. So I wanted lyrics that just kind of, because I like lyrics that just, like F you, anti-establishment.
Yeah.
Were you kind of the same?
My parents, as mentioned before we started the podcast, my father died when I was 12, so I don't really have much memories of his musical taste. I do know he was into Herb Alpert, and that's about it. And I quite like some of that stuff now. It reminds me of my dad. And my mum, she's not really at all. It's kind of not particularly musical household in that respect. I think we all got the bug simply because that was what kids did back then. And these days, kids are, there's a million things to keep their, to divide their attention, as it were, and to gain their attention. And obviously, computer games and all the rest of it being a huge one these days. And I think, the music industry possibly there's a loss there in a way, but that's what it was. We were kind of, that was our main interest, and I learned to play guitar because I wanted to be a pop star. Then I wanted to be playing bass. I ended up being playing guitar in bands, and then I wanted to learn drums, so I taught myself drums at home. My mum let me have a drum kit. So I was lucky in so many ways that my father died. My mum was very liberal about things, very liberal about what I got up to, and I had two older brothers that left the house, so it was just me and my mum. So it's kind of, she became my older sister more than my mum for many years, So I had that kind of freedom, and managed to get a Revox A77, which is a kind of the BBC version of the B77 Revox reel-to-reel machine. So I started experimenting with sound using that and drums, So I kind of had that formative years of kind of messing around with tapes and bits of synthesizers. It was a drum synth I got and what have you. So it kind of heading in the right direction towards what ended up being like, very much electronic musical career. Starting with perhaps, the DJing, which I kind of got into really. I thought in a way would be a great way to make a living whilst actually making music. But at the same time was very interested in like the New York DJs that I'd read about, and the kind of style of mixing that they were doing, which was obviously not something I was really privy to in Preston or anywhere else, in Manchester for that matter. But I hadn't heard that kind of long style mixing, that the mixing full stop, in fact, So I kind of, it all kind of kicks in really, for me, as I say, really in the sort of later teens, 16, 17, when I became aware of what's happening in the States and the clubs, and wanting to be a part of that, and sort of fell into it that way.
Well, I was listening to David Morales the other day, and when he speaks, you listen, and I love what he was saying. He's like, the kids today are not letting these records play as they should, because each record tells a story. I saw that. Absolutely. There is this. It's sort of like attention span, I think, as well, isn't it? The fact that it's just, and mixes definitely got shorter and shorter. It used to be a 9-minute mix, possibly 7 or 8, but now you're looking at arrangements, and I sense it, and as a producer, I sense it. From being a DJ sense, you take it over to the producing side, and you start to get a little bit itchy when it hits 5 minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, which would never be an issue back in the day. And I think because it's another kind of sidebar to this with digital. I get a track that hasn't got the intro that I need or the outro I need. Then I just edit it myself. So you find and you can now stem out a track,
very either in Traktor or in Logic or whatever you want to use, and then you can create your own percussion sections. It's not difficult to actually extend something into a 7-minute thing. And I generally, when I do a back-to-back with Joshua post-human, he looks over and he goes, 30 minutes? It's like, no, that's the edit. It's just the edit, which allows me to play another track over the top of it for as long as I want. So I've got everything running together. I tend to layer things a lot, and it's that old school thing of that long mix that the New York guys would do, where you've got 2 records running together for their entirety virtually. You're bringing a track in within the first breakdown, and you've got a track running underneath it, and you've got it working together. That's what always got me really excited about DJing, was creating a third track out of the 2. The sum being greater than the part, the sum being greater than the parts, as it were. But yeah, I think there is. I think it's a bit too hard in a way on everybody. But Morales is right to a large extent, and but it might swing back around again. I don't know. It's whatever's really in favour fashion wise with music, and I think a lot of the things that are happening at the moment don't lend themselves. I don't know. I've got a lot of acid house stuff that's really fucking long. So you check any post-human track, they're usually quite extensive, and it allows the track to develop and allows the track to actually, to do its work.
Yeah, I was always, when I go record shopping, obviously, sometimes it's the single edit on the A side.
Yeah,
and you've got the extended dub. I would always go straight for that, because that's 8-9 minutes. And I love the journey of listening. I can't do like a 2-minute listen.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
I think, if you've got good musical taste, you can tell within like the first 30 to 45 seconds of a track, you're going to dig it or not.
Yeah.
I've just gotten to that point, like where I used to go record shopping. I would go through so many records within an hour.
Yeah, you skip. Yeah, I can skip across the track, and it'd be either the production would grab me. There's different things that actually, grab me in terms of. Yeah, but you've got that little filter in your head of what works, and but yeah, you can go through.
Yeah, I'd look across and the lad or the lass next to me is listening to the whole thing, and I'm just going through that, and they just look at me going, "What is wrong?" like I've got tics or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the way I work, if it doesn't grab me right there and then, obviously later on in life, like if you rehear that song, then you might go, oh man, I missed that the first time around.
Yeah. You do miss things. I've missed a lot of stuff that either with that technique of checking things out, but also you've got the wrong impression of the artist in the first place, and you just go, not even bothering, which can be really, really negative. Sorry, I've just got somebody really pestering me. And it is post-human. It's just about a gig. It's like, what? Give me an answer. I was like, can't give you an answer. Right. No worries. We're playing more Isle of Acids in the year. We just had a big one in Birmingham with 808 State. So I think we've got some big stuff coming up, including Slam in October at the Golden Lion.
Now that's
sorry, this is really rude. Up for it. That's all I'm going to say. And they're like, I'm on a podcast. Right, sorry, Daz. That's it. It just kept coming up my screen. I'm going, oh.
Is that Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell him I said hello.
Well, I will later.
Hey, you can see that. That's what I love, though. You're excited still about.
Oh God, yeah,
stuff like that, and that's the way it should be. Like, we all know in this industry, you're not really going to make the money like you want,
No.
And you can tell the people that are really passionate about
still doing it.
and that's why you're still doing what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm more excited now than ever in so many ways. I mean, it's partly down to Joshua Doherty, which is post-human, because I mean, I did one gig for him, and I just became part of the team. And I still been up with him. I'm brought it up in Birmingham last weekend. It's like, I still can't get over it. He said, well, yes, some people just fit, and you just fit it straight away, and you're a good guy, and that's that, and bang. And it allowed me to, in many ways, to reinvent myself, because I do get, and I'm not, obviously I'm very thankful for the time I spent in Hacienda and the work I still do with them, but you get kind of pigeonholed, and there's that assumption that you're going to play Hacienda music, which generally means classics and it generally means old stuff, and it's that just strangles you completely as an artist, as a DJ, whatever. That those kind of pigeonholing just absolutely destroys you. So it's fantastic for me, and as I've often said, I'm my happiest place when I'm playing Isle of Hacienda, and generally with a back to back with Joshua, with Posthuman, we have so much fun, and I can play what the fuck I want. But it's still within. I mean, I play much broader stuff. I've been doing some stuff. I'm now able to, in many ways, because of things have moved on for me, thanks to this release and other stuff that I've done, that I can actually play sets, and people understand that I'm also into a lot of other music around that, not just acid house. And it did confuse a lot of promoters. Probably didn't book me for that very reason. But I've got a very broad taste in music, a very broad taste in dance music as well. So. But I like the quirky, and I like the weird stuff, and I like stuff that is not just bloody fact, kind of by numbers. When there's so much music that comes out and clogs up the whole system, you're wading through shit to get to find a diamond these days. And that's the same in Bandcamp as anywhere else. It's better on Bandcamp than it is on Beatport, but it's still a major undertaking. I spend days. He's trying to find music that really gets me going. It's exciting, and I know that's going to make a set for me. That's going to fit. That's going to be amazing. Can't wait to play that. And generally, it could be something that's 5 years old that most people have passed by, or maybe they did play it. I don't know, but I missed it, and I think it's amazing. And that become a major part, or a glue record, which are really important. You need these glue records that connect the bigger tunes together, perhaps. That give it the next tune a sense of drama when it does arrive. There's all those. There's so many different. But you've got to spend the time digging. And I digitally dig. I don't spend a lot of time in record shops. I don't live. I live out in the countryside, so I live away from. I got away from it all a little bit. So I live out in the middle of the High Peak. So outside Manchester, between Manchester and Sheffield. So it's always about digital digging for me now. And that takes forever.
Oh yeah, I spend a few hours a week doing that. But again, there was nothing like buying a record and then running back to your mate's house on the turntable and show them how excited you were to get this brand new track. And then some of your mates just going, what? Yeah, what's that? Yeah, what? I don't get it. I just don't get it. The bleepy, bloppy, bloppy, blue. How my mates used to call it bleepy, bloppy.
Yeah, bleepy, bloppy.
Not even music. They were just, what is this, like ping? Like, put up. I'm like,
no. So I get the impression they were into electronic music then, not into dance music, more into indie or...
Yeah, more
rock,
Oasis and all that at that time. And, I brought that home and... They'd just laugh at me, I mean, they were still like big into like New Order and Depeche Mode, so I thought that at least find it interesting. They just were like, nah, I'm not having that. But then, a few years later, they're right next to me, raving their nuts off.
Yeah.
So, they came around, but maybe they had a little bit of persuasion with the other stuff that came with raves, but
with the chemicals, yes.
That's how the gateway to rave music.
Yeah.
But for you, I mean, you started really early, didn't you, DJing?
Not really. Well, I started. Well, again, I'm a bit confused myself about this. How I got into it, because I had a girlfriend at university that was really wanted to DJ, but I think I'd already started, but she kind of pushed me in that direction. But I must have been 21 at that point. I mean, I did DJ before them, like at Twang, a club in Preston. But I was playing things like Television and the pop group and like fucking weird shit like that. So it wasn't wasn't really a proper kind of DJ set. You know, it was just playing records. You know. So no, I was quite late to the gate. I was late getting to university. I was 21 when I actually started university because I was ill and missed a year, and then I had to do another year A levels to get my grades, and then so I was already old when I got there at 21, and it was a couple of years into that again I was ill again. I took a year out, and then that year I got really bored. And I was going to parties and really fed up with what people were playing at the parties, you know. And it's that point when I was chatting to an ex-girlfriend who was still very good friends with, and we decided to start, you know, we tried to afford Technics decks, we couldn't. We managed to get 2 Technics that were direct drives, but we thought that's all we needed, direct drives, and we could put some power connect, interrupt the power with a switch on the power cables and turn them on like that. Of course, that didn't work. So we just ended up just throwing records on. But we started this little DJ crew called the Lucky Bag Crew with a kid really from Whitstable town. That's where I was living at the time. I was down in Kent. And so it's me and Francesca and a guy called Damien Harris. He you all now know as Midfield General, and who'd set up Skint Records and all the rest of it, and now runs Vicious Charm. So Damien was 15. I remember his 16th birthday, in fact. And we used to do little parties. We did the first one at the Labour Club in Whitstable. We had Alan Davis, the comedian. He was in his third year. He was in his last. It must have been the second year I started doing this, because he was in his last year. And he did a stand-up routine for us. So it started off quite big. Telling banana jokes, apparently. Damien reminds me about this. I don't remember him doing this or the banana jokes, but that's probably because I got very drunk that night. But yes, we did. That's how we kind of started DJing, and it was, you know, I didn't get Technics until I moved to Manchester in '88. And Francesca, in the meantime, where I live, had managed to buy some, and I kind of learnt within a matter of months. And in that period, I was getting guest spots in around Manchester. One of those at a place called Stuffed Olives on King Street, which became South, the club South. Paul Cont and Hacienda happened to come in with a Vidal Sassoon party, having a birthday party, and heard me and went, "Oh, that's the man for the next Wednesday night," you know, which was going to be all hot. So I was obviously doing the right thing at the right time, which was basically mix of acid house with like trash. I did a mix of Boys. Who's that by? Boys, get ready for the weekend. I did that with Acid Tracks, Future. It was kind of throwaway, tongue-in-cheek thing, you know. And Paul Cons loved that, so that's probably why I got signed by the Hacienda, you know. Anyway, it's been down ever since.
Yeah, I mean, it opens the door for you. That, like, you know, I probably went to the Hacienda a handful of times, but that was towards, you know, the end. But just you know, watching the documentaries, and, you know, I had Dave Haslam on here as well.
Yeah.
Just listening to just him, you know, tell me like what was going on in the booth at the time as well. You know, like they had to, you know, they're able to close the door, but they had people banging on the door, you know, to play this track and that, and for other stuff.
And hand over various articles to people that they wanted as well. A lot of that going on, and a lot of girls trying to get in. And I know some did. No, it's just one of those. It certainly wasn't me, but I know other DJs that might have done that. It was. I mean, that DJ box, I've seen quite a lot, and I know that it used to get really messy in there. And I know that the cleaners stopped cleaning it, because I remember I started doing the Saturdays as well as the Wednesdays, and the cleaners refused to clean the DJ box. So the first thing I had to do when I got there on a Saturday evening was to go and get a mop and mop out the floor, because you couldn't move. It was that sticky. Oh. You just literally couldn't lift your feet up. You know, you'd be like going, I won't be able to move around the place, so I had to go and mop the thing, you know. So that's, you know, glamorous side to the job.
Yeah, here's the turntables, and here's a mop.
Here's a mop. Get on with it.
Get to work.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you must have some stories about like Hacienda. I mean, like the heydays of just watching, the crop of Manchester bands go through there, and just
I used to hang out a little bit with Bernard from the Order, and he'd come on the Saturday of all times. I don't think I ever saw him many times on the Friday, and and he'd always end up at the end of the night. And I said, "Where have you been, Bernard?" He's been. I probably hate telling this, but he'd covered in crap. I don't. Obviously, he'd enjoyed himself that much. He'd end up on the floor at some point or other. I always, for some reason, I remember the time I had a spare T-shirt, so I gave him one of the T-shirts. He was like, "All right, come on, let's get out. I'm going to party." And he'd take some really godforsaken parties in a tower block with no windows in it. You know what I mean? I go, "Bernard, I don't think you should be here. There's no fucking windows in. There's no glass in the windows." It's one of them. And I could look down at that and see somebody's car being robbed, the car radio and that kind of shit. It was like, oh God. But he really liked going to that kind of, to the dark side, which is when you got somebody that famous, you get a bit nervous, that if the manager found out, from Gretna found out I was with him, I'd get it in the neck, you know what I mean? So, but there was, obviously there was the notorious carols underneath the balcony of the Hacienda at one end towards the doors. That's where there's two carols worth of people, and they were generally where the Mondays and associated people. Probably a lot of Oasis in there. I mean, before the Oasis, no doubt, it was probably Noel was in there and all the rest of it. But also, it was a no man's land. You went in there, you had to you had to turn a blind eye for what was going on, because the doorman wouldn't go in there, bouncers wouldn't go in there. You know what I mean? So pretty much everything went on in there. You know what I mean? So. So as for stories, I can't really, because I was terrified, to be frank. You're not sending me. I'd probably say hello, and somebody drag me in to have a chat, but it was like, it's not somewhere you'd hang out, because a lot of the time they're having a lot better time than you are. You're keeping it together because you're bloody DJing. You're not like you know what I mean. So on a different plane to them, spiritual plane, let's put it.
Yeah, for the longest time, I didn't even know there was like a downstairs.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, the Gay Traitor. I mean, yeah. I did spend a lot of time in there, because I'm going on a Friday. When I first started, I started playing Hot July of '88, and the guest gig hadn't really taken off at this point. It didn't really take off for a couple of years. My only work was generally around Manchester, and it would be the Hacienda or maybe some other stuff as well. So Fridays was usually free, and if I didn't, I sometimes play for Dean Johnson, who was a Hacienda DJ, and he'd do a soul funk night where the Twisted Wheel used to be. I forgot what it was called now, but I would play. I was really into dancehall reggae, so I was ordering stuff from him and his record shop, Expansions, and buying blind like 25 quid for the dancehall reggae every week. So he said, I can't check it out for you. I'm just going to buy off the catalogue, the one they send through, Greensleeve sends through. And, probably 3 out of 5 were amazing, 2 were duds, but you just kept, keep doing it. So I'd build a massive collection. So I love playing that. So sometimes I played there, but generally I'd go to the Hacienda, the news night. And at this point, Graham would join the team. And that was kind of like a social club for me. That's where I was out hanging out with my girlfriend, or, seeing friends. We spent a lot of time in the Gay Traitor, a lot of time. Yeah. And I started to realize that I didn't have to pay anything at the bar. That helped. There was an unwritten rule that Jon Dasilva didn't pay at the bar. And even after I left in '91, I was never to have to pay for a drink in the place ever again, So it was like, who wants a drink? Yeah.
Well, I mean, Liverpool, we had Quadrant Park. That was our, main place to go. I mean, for what was like, London, you had Shoom all going on. What was it like really about the Hacienda that really took people to travel?
Yeah. To travel and do all that. I mean, I think it helps that the club itself, design-wise, was so quirky. And obviously, the design aesthetic was kind of robbing stuff from street furniture, from traffic, from the whole, and from industrial furniture, as it were. So you've got all the bollards from the traffic bollards and what have you, and there's hazard stripes and all the rest of it. So that, and there's no carpet and there's none of that. So and it had that really muted kind of colour scheme, and it had that feel of something arty, essentially. I mean, it's also related to Factory Records, who had a massive reputation. I mean, they kind of kick off the independent scene in so many ways, and the fact that the Joy Division and then New Order didn't sign to London Records, which eventually they did when Factory collapsed, but stuck with their local label. That really starts the independent music sector, because people start to believe you don't have to sign to a major, and you can do it yourself in your hometown. And the Hacienda, in many ways, does the same thing with dance music, I suppose, in many ways, because it kind of, I think, for good 5 years, from 88 onwards, London lost its relevance. I think there was so many people came to Hacienda and then went, we can do this, and went off to Nottingham or Glasgow or wherever it might, Liverpool, and did their own clubs. Inspired. I know James Bond at 05 did it with 051. It was very much, the blueprints was the Hacienda, and I think the fact that it had this great design and the DJs were quite good, and generally, it was a good experience to go to Hacienda. Generally, I know people might have some bad experiences. I know the doormen at times were terrible, and I think people learned from that. Other promoters learned from that, and get But I think it was. And I don't want to go on and on about Manchester, but it was very, very exciting to be in Manchester at that time. I think it did create blueprints for so many things, and so much of that comes out of the likes of Rob Gretton and Tony Wilson for their passionate belief in the city. And Mike Pickering, obviously. I mean, Mike Pickering and Martin Prendergast, who were MP Squared, who'd been doing the nude night for years. When I first arrived in Manchester in '88, they were doing. It wasn't really the kind of. They didn't really play sets. It was more like a radio show. They have an in and out box, and I managed to wheedle my way into being friendly enough with them to be able to get in the box with them. And I saw the setup, and it was like, what they played the last 3 weeks was in one box, and the new stuff was in another box, and they kind of all moved over one bit by bit into the out box. So it's kind of like Stu Allen's radio show in a way, but it was live. In the club, so that allowed you to hear so much hip hop and techno and house that perhaps you wouldn't have heard anywhere else. And I know Martin Prendergast, I think, has been credited with actually being the first person to come across Detroit techno, and he's the first person to play it in the UK. So this guy isn't far from me. He lives in Houston, not in Austin, but he lives in Houston, Texas now. He's a local DJ there, as it were. So the guy hasn't stopped DJing, but he just decided he left Manchester in '88 on holiday, met a girl, and never came back. But he was, he was a massive DJ, and along with Mike, they were just so incredibly influential on the likes of me and a whole generation of DJs.
Well, there's so people forget, like Laurent Garnier.
Yeah.
Stardust, Sasha, who views you as a massive influence.
Well, so Laurent became a friend quite early on, because Francesca, I'd mentioned earlier in my story, who I sort of DJ with, she moved to Manchester with me. We had an intention to set up a club together. She got a job as an offline editor, and ended up working with Tony Wilson on that footage that's knocking around of Hot Night that he shot. So at some point, I had a whole tape of the whole thing, which has got lost in moves and all the rest of it. But Laurent, she got a job at the Hacienda behind the bar. So she got to know Laurent. I think Laurent was a little bit in love with her. And because of that, I got to know Laurent. So we were both into similar things. It's kind of weird disco and electronica and that kind of thing. So we hit it off big time. So, and I think in many ways, because Laurent had to go away to do national service in July '88 or June '88. I think it was August '88, whatever. But he kind of thought, well, I'll get John a gig at the Hacienda, because he's not quite as good as me, so I'll be able to take his job back when I come back. And unbeknown to him, Paul Cons had already heard of me and wanted me to do it anyway. It's nothing to do with Laurent whatsoever. So, but the idea was when he came back, that we would do the Saturday night together. But that would involve getting rid of another DJ, which I won't name names at the moment because it's too political. But for that very reason, because it was too political, they thought, well, and they came to me and said, we can't get rid of without, we have to get rid of you as well. So that's essentially when I left the Hacienda. It was kind of like, we can't do this anymore. So kind of pissed off about it, because me and Laurent would have been a great team. But But yeah, at the same time, Hacienda moved on. It was much more, Saturday night was much more commercial in so many ways. I think the overall feel had changed. The energy from Hacienda had pretty much, a lot of it had gone. It became much more of I dare say, Sharon and Tracy club than it was when I was there. Anyway, I don't think I fitted anymore. I always felt that I was a bit more left field than that, and a little bit more left leaning in terms of music. So, yeah, I'm saying that I play a lot of, but yeah, I generally, I think I brought that to the table in certain respects, But look, yeah, Sasha actually moved into the apartment block I lived in Whalley Range, so it was actually the floor below me, and he'd started at Shelley's at this point, I think. And Gary McLarnon, who was one of the guys that ran Shelley's, directly lived below me, so he had to suffer me playing music at god-awful volumes, And in particular, when I was working on a track in the studio, I'd have to play it over and over again. But Gary introduced me to Sasha, or maybe I've met Sasha at Eastern Block, one of the two, but he all of a sudden he was living in the same apartment block and would come upstairs, knock on my door, ask for a cup of sugar. I'm not joking. Ask for a cup of sugar and hand me a cassette of the mix he'd just done, which would be my exact mix from the previous week, minus the tunes that he couldn't get hold of because they were rare promos or whatever. You know what I mean? So I got the impression he was a little bit into what I was doing. So and we became friends. I got him his first gig at the Hacienda. I literally smuggled him in. Anyway, nobody would agree to it. So I said, well, just play. I'm on 9 till 11 before anybody else arrives. You can play then. And much to he remembers this. He said, he's so embarrassed about it now. He played every big tune he possibly could in a warm-up situation, and he's like, he's still, it's one of those embarrassing moments of his early career. And I was like, don't worry about it, kid. You know what I mean? Get on with it, But so yeah, those were. Sasha did eventually get a night there, or played a few nights there. I think it was Shine. He played with Mike, I think, a few times, but I wasn't really involved at that point, so I don't really know.
Well, it's just crazy to think, he looks at you as a mentor, and then, years down the line, you release a track on Last Night on Earth, with Joseph K.
Yeah.
360.
Yeah. I think that was the first thing that I sent him a couple of things before then, thinking there might be in his, but he literally signed that in 30 seconds. He got the email. I mean, it was like I got a reply. Literally, just went, cool, yep, I'm in it. That bang. Joseph was just like, Joe was like, what the fuck, So I don't know whether it's, there may be an element of like, we did a gig together as well, and just before lockdown, literally my last gig before lockdown in February 2020, I think it must have been. Was it 2020? Anyway, whatever, 2020 it was, yeah. So that was kind of nice. That was a full circle thing for sure, and yeah, well, it's lovely to be still in contact with him, and all hail him. All hail.
I mean, for me, his label, you can't really pigeonhole. Like, you'll get, a few 4 or 5 progressive house tracks, then throw something so out of it, Yeah.
Well, that's the stuff I actually like. This on Last Night. It's the more wonky stuff, and he does some great stuff himself. There's some tracks he's done in the last few years, anyway. That I've gone, what the hell, that's fun, So the guy can still do it, but I'm not a huge fan of prog house. So the prog, I like it. I mean, I've probably made stuff that's probably early prog house without, but it's I can certainly pinpoint a couple of tracks I've done that were kind of heading that way, but before it became a genre as such, But I tend to find it gets a bit dull for me after a while. So I like things a bit rawer a lot of the time, and quirkier, perhaps,
Like groove based.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing like, and I know it's like cliche to say. I mean, for me, I do like DJs that take me on journeys. I mean, I'm not going to say like
I don't think prog house is exclusive. There's the whole journey thing is exclusive to prog house. I think that could be, you could take me on a journey across genres for a start. Anyway, and if you're talking about within a track, then I think that perhaps that's maybe what irritated me, that there was I think a lot. I mean, it's something that I've been trying to teach my son and people that I've chat to about making music. You've got to start thinking. You can't be too musical with a dance track. It gets in the fucking way, and that detail is lost in a club. You're now making listening music, which is fine. Do that. Make listening music, but then stop worrying about having a massive club kicking involved or whatever, which is taking a whole section of your soundstage. Why are you bothering with that? If you want to make music that's electronic, that's influenced by perhaps your experiences in clubs, fine. If it's listening music, but you've got to think about what actually works in the club. And I've been doing this for years, over producing, putting too much musicality into stuff, and it's a hard one. It's hard won, the simplicity you really need to kind of find for something to really, really kick through in a club. And I think, that's what I'm getting to that now after bloody 30 years of producing, more. I mean, I'm in my early 60s now, for God's sakes. You think I'd get it quicker, but, and I'm coming back to Chicago House, and it was just that simplicity. I mean, you listen to Adonis, No Way Back. It's 4 elements, if that. And that track still fascinates me, just how amazing it is, and no, it doesn't take you on a journey within the track, but within a set, it's part of a mosaic. What do you want to call it?
That's what you want. I mean, I'm not saying a DJ take me on this spiritual journey, but take me on the dance floor. Where there's highs and there's troughs.
That's absolutely. So you've got that dynamic. I think that really, a lot of people hadn't heard that. In 88, and I don't think there were many DJs in the UK who were doing that in 88, and that's something that I personally, and I know a lot of the DJs that started at the time, it was intuitive to them to try and do that, to create those peaks and troughs, and obviously come to a crescendo at the end of the night when we had the end. And these days, the end of the night, when is the end of the night? It's usually until people are drifting out at 5 o'clock, and it's still going for another 2 hours. So it hasn't got that same. You don't have that same energy requirement to get people to give them the cues that it's the end of the night kind of thing, and give them the biggest rush for the end of the night. That's kind of gone. So the dynamics changed for DJing in many ways. I was working with 808 State at the weekend, and I was going, I kept going to Graham, you're going to put some 808 State at the end. Pay them off, and he probably did, but there's that's an old school sensibility of mine, which is just, quite funny, really. It's like, big tune at the end of the night kind of thing, but, because that doesn't really, I don't think that really exists in let's say, outside of, that kind of, outside of my life, maybe.
No, I mean, I would always hope the DJ, left us with hopefully like one of his tracks or her tracks, to kind of end the night. And it just makes you just leave that dance floor like you're satisfied. Yeah.
And that's as I say, with these, we're now all-nighters basically every weekend. That kind of dynamics that it kind of isn't required so much, I mean, maybe within a set, but let's move on, because it's too complicated. The ins and outs of it, whether it's actually happening or not, I don't think it's happening as much anymore. And I say we had a very early night on Saturday at the Hare and Hounds. It's a 9 till 2 situation, which is really old school. 9 till 2. That was the Hacienda for years. And that's kind of you knew it was that's defined me so much. So I guess I'm still holding on to that paradigm, I suppose.
Well, I'm liking hearing more and more of these day raves. Because as you get older, to be back home by 10 o'clock at night is brilliant. You're slipping.
I never am though. I'm either going to do another gig afterwards. Or like, okay, no, it wasn't quite. I was doing the Hacienda one a week last Saturday, which was at Freight Island. That didn't finish. I mean, I was on. I did the after show, so yeah, I finished at 1 or 2 o'clock. Still, I managed to go to bed at 7 in the morning. Managed to find a bottle of vodka in the house somewhere and start making cocktails at fucking 3 in the morning. Anyway, I should know better.
That's what we all say, Yeah. Well, I've got 4 kids, so they don't give a damn if I've got a hangover. It's like, come on, Dad, get on with it,
Well, thankfully mine are all grown up, so I'm all right on that score,
Mine are just growing up, so got many, many years of, Dad.
Yeah.
But how did your relationship with Josh come about?
It was a very important one. I moved to Sweden about it's 2010, so and I was there for 9 years, and during that time, I found it quite difficult making a living for a start, because there was only so many gigs you can do in Stockholm, and I ended up just basically having to get on the plane to come back to England all the time, at the same time, I kind of got involved in an agency that wanted me. They signed me to the agency Electronic Soul. That's the agency, and I kind of got involved doing their social media a little bit and booking people, and then looking for people to actually get the agency. And I really liked what Posthuman was doing musically, so I got in contact with him, possibly through Bandcamp. I don't know how I got his email, and in return, as I say, he booked me for a block in London, which would have been around about, it's like probably 2016, something like that. 16, 17. And then I just fell into the team. I didn't realize it, but it's basically and he booked me to play at Moog in Barcelona in 2016. And that's how I met Jo, my partner now, who's she's British, but she's been living in Barcelona. By then she left in 2019, so it's 19 years there. So it's Alabasta has changed my life in so many ways. Our families are now. I've got 2 kids. One's actually already moved out, but Oscar and her 2 kids we're blended family now. So we've been together for it'll be 9 years this year. So. Alabasta changed my life. So that's how we got to get to know each other. Now we're best buddies. It's like one of those. Like I say, I adore the guy. And the time we get together when we're DJing is some of the best times of my life. Saturday being one of them. It's great to have Graham and his son Jackson playing together with us. So we're booking another one of those. Hopefully, for the Golden Lion, start of 27. Playing ahead, because you have to be Golden Lion in Tomberton. It's very much booked up, and so Josh has been really, really important to me, and he's also an expert on all the ins and outs of setting up a record label and Bandcamp and all the rest of it. So it's been really, really helpful, and I had a brief chat on Saturday night about the label and what I'm planning to do with it. So it's really important in my life.
Yeah, he just needs to. He seems like he knows a lot about everything. I mean,
Yeah.
But when I had him on, I think he said, like, in a few days after that, he was going to Singapore for
Taiwan.
Taiwan for the
Taiwan. So Taiwan. Yeah.
The record pressing plant.
That's who he works for. He's got it. I mean, it was a part-time job, but he's now seems to be kind of full-time-ish, because he's now head of production for all the English-speaking countries that they deal with. So they all have to come through him to, So So it's a good person to know if you want to get something, And they do great stuff there, and they've worked out a process where they can turn around cheaply, like just down to 50 copies or 100 copies cheaply, rather than because they managed to work out in the process. They built their own particular machine. I don't understand a word of it, so it tends to go right over my head, But I should watch the videos again. It does put out these great videos explaining the whole process, which is worth having a look at.
Yeah, it just. I mean, I love Josh. I love all the Posthuman stuff, and again, being over here, I feel like I miss out so much, from back home.
Yeah,
I would love to go to a night. I love acid.
Well, he does. He's in the States quite a lot. I've been with anywhere near Texas, but he's been now. Yeah,
not really over there. Like, I mean,
yeah.
that the electronic music scene in Texas is really healthy. It's really good, but it's the bigger players,
Yeah,
really,
yeah. But I have to tell you that I'm good friends with Andy Robinson, who is now retired, but was New Order's. But he's in the last 20 years he's been New Order's manager. But before that, he was New Order's tour manager, and he was Bernard's keyboard programmer rather when they're in the studio. So, and he would tell me stories about Houston, Texas. This is like '87 and '88, and they had these big air conditioned clubs, all fluorescent their designs, all lit up UVs, all the rest of it. And ecstasy at the time was legal in the States. So it's called X at the time, So they had the craziest times in Houston of all places. That's where it really kicked off. It really influenced New Order, The Technique album is very much influenced by, by Houston, Texas, I think, and those clubs. They spent a lot of time partying in those clubs, from what I can gather. But yeah.
Well, my missus is from Houston, and the club probably you're talking about is called Numbers.
Right. I'll check. Yeah.
And it's still there. It's still open. I mean, they brought like the goth and indie DJs, and like had, I think, New Order. I think might have
played the club.
Yeah. And same with the Smiths early on. But it's another great city, but it's a pain in the arse to get from A to B because you've got to go to Z to get to B. It's such a wide metropolitan city, but just the motorways are just like, no, thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like Birmingham, and I was in Birmingham on Sunday, Bank Holiday Sunday, and it was just I'm walking around going. I mean, it's supposed to be designed for cars, Birmingham, but even when I got in the car, finally got to the car park, having to walk 2 miles one way to go just back. I can see the car park, and then get in the car, and then it was another half an hour to get out of the bloody city. And it's just it's only stone's throw to the motorway, but yeah.
Yeah, when you can see where you need to be, but you've got to go.
Yeah, the other way.
That way.
Yeah.
That's a pain in the arse, but yeah, it's I mean, it's come on leaps and bounds since I've been over there, and it's nice to see. I do believe, like, a lot of the kids that are all going to these massive EDM events in a few years, I think they're going to look for something more underground.
Yeah,
they're going to be tired of the massive corporate showcase, and they're going to go, I want something a bit rawer, something that's really going to like mean something to me.
Again, coming back to Joshua Posthuman, he's doing a lot of shows out there, and saying absolutely there's a lot of very underground stuff happening. He's doing some of the established clubs, but he's doing a lot of the underground stuff as well, because he makes those connections for, it is acid house, and I Love Acid is quite niche, and so that in many ways is a plus, because you start making those connections with people that are doing stuff across the country, because they get what you're about, because it's not many people are playing that kind of end of the spectrum dance wise.
Yeah, it's going to be cool to see what happens over there in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
I mean, apart from the politics, but
I know.
That's a whole different podcast.
Well, I won't be able to get in the country with my social media history. That's for sure at the moment.
Yeah, it's just going a bit kooky, and I just don't know how the World Cup's gonna go, and you don't want certain people in the country, but you're having the biggest football tournament in the world.
Well, the players are worried about getting arrested, and it's
it's just madness.
Nice.
That's why I stick to music and football. Politics will get me going, but I want to do full circle now. With the new single coming out. And well, it's come out. You're doing a lot of press for it. Has it changed for you? The amount of kind of
I released something last year that I literally produced in a matter of a week or so, and And it was something I did on my own because I was getting a bit tired of the collaborative process that I was going through with Jonas, and it was just something I just knocked out. And Tony from Hot Work Records, he loved it, wanted to put it out, and it literally came out. I finished it and it was out within 2 or 3 weeks, which is like unheard of. It wasn't on vinyl. He didn't want to do the vinyl on it because he wanted to get it out, and I didn't do any pre-promotion for it. I didn't do any post-promotion for it, and it probably disappeared. So it's funny with this one. We'd agreed to release it, and it was a release that was ready to go 3 years ago, and me and Jonas, my partner in Sweden, had a bit of falling out over certain mixes and certain versions and and just got the cover and everything was ready to go, and we just pulled it when it was supposed to come out on with a Juno P&D deal, so it's come out on vinyl and everything. So I kind of went back to Tony. Well, Tony asked me again, "Do you want to do something else?" Well, let's just do this. In the meantime, I'd found other mixes that I was really happy with. I know that Jonas was happy with them, and I sneaked on the bass ID mix kind of thing as well, which I think had been a lot of the problem we'd had. And this time around, I decided to do some pre-promotion on it. So I put these little clips together with footage from Hot Night, Hacienda. I stuck them on Instagram, and that kind of started the whole ball rolling. And it was like people are desperate. When's this coming out? It's not available now. I was like, and within half an hour of like Luke Una doing his little rant to the camera kind of thing, his little early morning chat to his faithful. Thanks to him bigging it up, I got a P&D deal for it within half an hour of him of the company seeing that video. They had a look and went, right, okay, no problem, we're doing it. So it kind of was a little bit previous because it wasn't ready to go. It takes 6 to 8 weeks to get vinyl to the shops. Do you know what I mean? So people were and there's 8 weeks. We just had to fill in the gaps with other kind of promo. It was a bit embarrassing in the end. It was like, I'm sick of seeing that thing in my background right now, but I've got to keep going. I mean, I'm Joshua again saying, no, this is your moment in the sun kind of thing. You've got to keep pushing it. And it's like, you think you're overdoing it, you're not even scratched the surface, The hope obviously is to see that it gets onto radio hopefully on Six Music in the next few weeks, but who knows? It's the luck of the gods. We have obviously tried to promote it to them as much as possible, but that's how you get to a large audience. I certainly haven't. I'm not been aware of anything. Certainly not in my career has anything I've done had this kind of excitement associated with it, and selling out the vinyl before it's even actually officially released is ridiculous. I mean, that's kind of like some idea of the buzz that's happening with it. And like I say, I think people are a bit confused about the EP. All the mixes are ours. I just named them differently, apart from Spatial Awareness's remix. But a lot of people thought that there was somebody called Bass ID and there's somebody called Isle of Acid, whatever. They're all various mixes. And this is the process that we go through, Jonas and I, with loads of different ideas thrown in, trying to find the best mix. So they're all attempts at being the A-side, and perhaps haven't made it to the A-side of the kind of the wonky mixes. So, and we're doing that. We've got a follow up to this release with Donald again, the singer Donald Waugh, which will be probably ready by September. Which is in the similar vein. It's got a vocal of sorts, and then it's got strong vocal from Donald, and it's kind of got that minimalness to it. But in the meantime, there's other stuff we've got ready to go. There's a track called Crashed Acid Adventure, which is going to come out, as I say, in June. There's another track called Never Surrender to the Evil. That's also nearly ready. That's more acid house. There's no singers involved as such in any of those. So, but there's an album's worth of material with Donald, which we're trying to get finished. Which I think won't happen. I was hoping September, but I think we're looking at start of 27. We'll have an album out. Which is in a similar vein to Some Brings Joy, but at the same time not. It's vocal led, put it that way. So this success, as it were, the interest has opened loads of doors for me. So it's kind of like I can now think about doing that and getting either licensed the album to people or doing it myself off my own label, whatever. So
it's just great. Again, you've been in this business, this culture for so long, and then something like this comes around that you've put out, and people are really resonating with it, because it's a chugger. I mean, I've noticed the older I get, the lower my BPMs are getting. That they just are, and I do it on the CDJs as well. If it's 125, I'll knock it down to 120. It's just me. It just bangs. Absolutely love it. And again, with a lot of the again, paint by numbers music, to find this diamond in the rough that you've done, it's like I'm grabbing it and I'm taking it, and I continually play it, and I've tried it in different sets as well, and like I said at the beginning, it fits in every set so well.
We've got there's often versions to appeal to everybody, just about, apart from maybe the goths. But yeah, I mean, I do. I'm very aware as a producer. I'm not putting out something that isn't. I'm absolutely 100%. I'm saying that I don't think the reason I put out last year was really up to it, but it really has to be. It's hard won and hard fought for all the the quality of this, because it's gone through a million bloody iterations to get to the point where you go, yeah, that's it, bangs, you know what I mean? So it's not something that comes easy. It's not. I can assure you, I wish it was. So you do need time to get these things right, and I'm not prepared to put out identikit fucking tracks. Let's just put out a tech house track. Let's put out a Afro house track. Fuck me, no, please. You know what I mean? So, or even, I even struggle with let's make an acid house track, because I struggle with that because I get any genre constriction, any kind of the kind of conventions start to annoy me, so I can tend to want to break out of them. So the acid track that's ready to go, never surrender to the evil. It is and it isn't. It's clearly got acid. I mean, there's tracks obviously on Some Big Story which are involving a 303, but they're not classic acid. They're not classic acid house tracks, and I kind of struggle to make them. Really, perhaps I'm just not very good at them. But I tend to like making stuff that's multi-genre or whatever across. That's got its own identity. I hope, but that's a bit of a tall, order, really.
Well, I think when you go in the studio, for a lot of people, you try and be organic about it. I mean, if you're going in the studio going, I'm going to make this progressive house hit, I'm going to make acid house, you can't. And I think a lot of the younger producers, they have these blinders on. Like, I've got to make this fit in a genre.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, you don't. You really don't.
Let happy accidents happen. Let things happen, and it's happy accidents that often create a track, and if it doesn't fit, if you can't hear it on a prog record or whatever it may be, or on a tech house record, don't worry about it. You might have invented something else. You might have invented a whole new genre for all you know. It's like that, and I think originality is difficult to conjure up, and when I see it happen, it's generally because you've mashed together things you shouldn't really mash together. And I think people need to be a little bit more brave about what they actually mix up, and not worry so much about genre conventions,
You hit the nail on the head, mate. That's how it should be. Yeah. Jon, it's been an absolute pleasure, and
thanks, as I say,
when we're talking about something we're really passionate about, an hour goes by so quickly.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I've enjoyed it. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity.
So I'll always say Bandcamp for me is the first place to go. So yeah.
Likewise, this Something Stories available on Bandcamp, on digital. There will be some vinyl going up probably by the time this podcast comes out. You can even get it with me signing. You can get it without me signing it. I think it's cheap if you buy. No, it's not. I was going to make it 15 quid unsigned and £12 signed because I ruined the cover, and my son did the cover, so it's kind of, I always feel a bit bad signing it. It's like, anyway. But yeah, it's available. It'll be available from Bandcamp, Hot Vertical Records.
Well, please, everyone, please go check Jon's new single out and his back catalogue, and and do you still have the SoundCloud page? Because
I do, yeah. I should service it a little bit more. I tend to use it to. It's all got private links on there for record companies and for personal use, just private links of the new stuff we're doing. So don't. I shouldn't tell people that, should I? They're going to crack it. They're going to hack it. But yeah, this I don't. I need to service it more, and it's one of those. It's just social media in general is like, oh God, it takes up so much fucking time. But yeah, I will do. I'll try to. And there's Mixcloud. Check out Mixcloud.
Mm-hmm.
There's mixes on there. Yeah,
that's where I usually go. I don't usually go, for music. I just go for like DJ mixes.
yeah. That's it. That's it. The DJ mixes up there. So, which is obviously a shop, the shop window for bookings for me in many ways. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much, mate. Thank you everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, put your notifications on, and as I always leave you, please look after yourself and stop being a bunch of arseholes. Like when you turn on the telly, it's nothing but bad news. Look, we are who we are. We all have different opinions and everything, but that's okay. That makes us who we are. But just look after one another, stay safe, and I'll see you next time.